For an all-out discussion on the final two game days of the PBA Governors Cup elimination round is basketball analyst Juan Banal. Juan B, good morning. Welcome back.
Hey, good morning, Andre. It's going to be a really interesting conversation that we're having this morning, so I can't wait. I'm so excited to jump right into it.
I like that. Parang kang estudyante sa school na ready sa kanyang midterm finals.
That's right.
Okay, Juan B, simulan muna natin. Dikit-dikit kasi yung standings, di ba? Grabe, eto, makikita natin. Grabe naman kasi yan, Juan Banal. If we take a look at the team standings right now, the Governors Cup, this is as of Tuesday, March 8. Paki-explain sa atin yung different scenarios and what makes the last four games so crucial.
So maybe we can just leave this on the screen, but we can start with the fact that obviously San Miguel, we'll look at, so Magnolia and NLEX have established their position in the standing, so they do have the twice the beat advantage. So you're basically looking at the third all the way to the eighth spot. And if you're looking at that, that's from San Miguel all the way to Phoenix. Those are the teams that can still change in terms of placing. And if whoever's going to get a twice the beat advantage. Now, San Miguel, on the other hand, Alaska and Ginebra don't have any games remaining. But the rest, you're talking about Meralco, you're talking about TNT, you're talking about Northport and Phoenix. These four teams can alter the dynamics of how this standing will look like. And we're going to be breaking it down a little bit. There will be different scenarios. I think we have graphics for that. But later on, after we show you the scenarios, I'll also break down per team what's going to happen, at least just to summarize what the situation will be like. So there are 8 possible scenarios, but I think to simplify, so this is the scenario for TNT. So a sweep for them against Terra Firma and Northport gives automatically TNT a twice the beat advantage. Maybe dropping just one game, that would put them in a 6-5 record, which will put them in a quarterfinal spot. But losing both games will be very dangerous for them, especially if Meralco also loses to Phoenix, so which would give them an early elimination. So 2 losses and a Meralco win, meanwhile, puts them in a playoff spot on the 8th place. So that means that's 6-5. So the really dangerous spot is 6-5 because that might oust you depending on the coaching system. So that's for TNT. So in other words, TNT must win the last 2 games. If they lose one, that still puts them in the quarterfinals. But if they lose 2, that means, and then Meralco wins, that kind of puts them in a playoff spot. Okay? Now, if so, this is another what it's going to look like.
Scenario 2.
Scenario 2, if TNT, Meralco, and Northport win games, so meaning TNT loses its last game, or at least one of those games, then this is where the standing. This is what the standing will look like. Okay, so Meralco on top, San Miguel will be pushed down. So the 3rd spot will be for Meralco, and then San Miguel will take that 4th spot for the twice the beat advantage. And then we will have Phoenix will be ousted out, which will leave Northport Batampier in that 8th spot. So, and then the next scenario, I'll summarize all of this later on. We're just seeing what will happen. So if TNT wins next 2 games, Phoenix beats Meralco, that puts TNT on top. And then that puts Phoenix in that 6th spot. While Alaska now, who's waiting, will get a chance now in the playoffs. And then Northport also stays there. Okay? So that's the scenario. Next scenario, if TNT, Phoenix, and Northport win their games, then TNT is bumped down to that 4th spot, still with a twice the beat advantage. Alaska makes it. Northport is going to have a playoff against Alaska for that 8th spot. Okay? And then
scenario 5. I think 7 na ba tayo?
Scenario 5 na to. Yeah,
7 na.
If Terra Firma wins, Phoenix wins, and then TNT wins its games, then this is what it's going to look like. Alaska gets bumped up, eliminated automatically at Northport. So in other words, Northport, well, they have to win at least their game against TNT to put them in a good spot. If Terra Firma, Phoenix, Northport wins, TNT, well, this is the worst case scenario for TNT.
Yes.
Okay, they will be eliminated because if they lose both games, and then Meralco also loses. Okay, that's going to be tricky for them. So they're going to be depending on another team if they lose 2 games. I mean, there's a possibility that they can still enter, but they can still be ousted out if Meralco loses. Now, if Terra Firma, Meralco, and TNT wins, then there will be a playoff spot for Northport and Phoenix also in that side. But TNT will lose their twice to beat advantage.
Wow. Tapos may scenario 8. Ito yung scenario 8. If Terra
Yeah,
Firma,
this is the last one. If
Meralco,
Terra Firma,
yes.
Meralco, and Northport wins, then
TNT naman.
TNT will now. Yeah.
As a
So if
playoff.
TNT loses both games and then Meralco wins,
Yeah.
that puts them in a spot now with a playoff against Phoenix. Okay?
Grabe. So there are 8
Yeah, but-
scenarios
yeah.
that you
Yeah.
just discussed. By the way, thank you to Manila Bulletin's Jonas Tarado who actually
Yeah.
broke that down. I saw that and talagang
But furthermore,
Mind-
we can break it down per teams. I mean, like for Meralco, the scenarios will be crucial. If you're okay with that, I can actually. Parang nagpakita ko sa'yo na I did my homework.
Sige.
No, but,
Okay.
yeah, but basically that's it. So Meralco, the Bolts will need to beat the Phoenix on Friday. That's for sure. That will give them a quarterfinal spot and a chance for the twice to beat.
Mm-hmm.
But if they lose to Phoenix, that means their fate depends on Phoenix. Okay. For Northport, they're the hottest team right now. A win over TNT and even a long shot might put them in a twice beat. Pero medyo long shot yun kasi quotient yun. They have to be in with a huge margin. And a loss, however, will put them on the 8th spot with a possible playoff. Okay? For Phoenix, Phoenix needs to beat Meralco to assure itself of the quarterfinal spot at the very least. Although they won't have a chance to a twice to beat anymore. If they lose, though, however, that puts them in the 8th spot. Okay, that will put them in a playoff spot. Now, for Alaska, they don't have games, so they're basically waiting. They can go either 5th as highest and low as 8th. But a loss by Meralco to Phoenix and a loss by TNT to Northport automatically puts them for a playoff spot against whoever's going to be positioned there. So, this is always the scenario. I need to catch my breath, but yeah. I hope I was able to make it clear, or I confused people even more. I think all you have to do is just watch the games. This is the classic. Let's skip to the good part. I think that this song perfectly fits this scenario.
Well, TNT, good job by the way, Juan, if I was your teacher. TNT has the most number of games left, di ba? May 2 games sila dahil because of the FIBA window. So 1 game against Terra Firma, 1 game against, like what you said, the Red Hot Northport Batang Pair, 5 straight wins. Ano magiging keys dito for TNT not to lose 2 games or any of the games in this stretch?
I think if there's anything that I saw in the last games so they're on a 3-game winning streak. And if there's anything that I saw is that all of a sudden after that stint with the FIBA window, their bench kind of deepened. Pogoy is back in the lineup. And then he was also forced to use now guys like Alejandro. You even saw Cobuntin getting a lot of playing time. All of a sudden, the bench of TNT, parang they're 2 teams on 1 team, and that puts them in a good spot, especially if they're trying to fight for the twice to beat advantage because of the depth of their bench with the amount of playing time and amount of exposure these players got because of that FIBA window, both for TNT and the players that played in Gilas. There is a strong chance that they can win, and if they're going to ride on their winning streak. Now, of course, they're going to play against the hottest team right now, which is Northport, and that's another story.
Okay, Northport naman. Syempre, sabi mo nga, hottest team, 5-game win streak. After starting the conference with 5 straight losses, how can they keep it up against TNT, who also wants this win? Kumbaga, parehong must-win yan. Must-win for TNT, for twice to beat. Must-win naman for Northport if they want to stay alive and be in the playoffs.
Well, I think such a bright star would be the rest of the team having to hold the fort while Robert Bolick had his negotiations happening and he had to play for Gilas. They did. You have to understand, this team started from, I think, a 0-5 standing, and yet this is where they are.
That's right.
And and they're on their way to actually marching through the playoffs if they beat TNT. But it's always been their style of play. Arwin Santos is such a bright star for them. He held the fort for the entire squad. But it's their ability to run. Both wins against Blackwater and against Terra Firma. They had 24-11 fast break points, 21-13 respectively. And so if they're able to push the pace and if they're able to get those rebounds, which so far Arwin Santos has been showing that he is more than capable to fill in the shoes of Greg Slaughter in the shaded paint, in getting those rebounds and being able to push the ball, then that's going to put TNT in a very precarious spot if they cannot stop those fast breaks by the Northport.
I wanted to ask you about Arwin, Juan, and you touched up on him briefly. Kasi nabanggit din, when we spoke to Robert Bolick, he said grabe din daw si Arwin. Si Arwin daw, nung pagdating daw ni Arwin, he basically kind of turned things around for this team. And he's playing like he's in his 20s. And let's not forget, Arwin,
That's right.
you know, has been in the league. He's a former champion, former MVP. And grabe, and the way he has turned things around. And defensive anchors daw sila, siya and si Jamie Malonzo. Your thoughts on, you know, how Arwin has, kumbaga, parang reignited this Northport team and also his career.
Right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you said he's not playing his age. You know why? Because he played 39 minutes against Blackwater and played 41 minutes against Terra Firma. That's just so many minutes under his belt in those last two games. And you might think that, oh, that's Arwin, he can pace himself. But this guy scored 21 points, 13 rebounds against Blackwater, against Terra Firma, he played 41 minutes. He had 28 points, 11 from 17 from the field, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal. And I think this is where you can take him out of a championship caliber team, but you can never take out the championship spirit in Arwin, that winning spirit. And he kind of is bringing that, because that's what Northport is missing. They've got so much talent throughout the years, but to have actually somebody who's won multiple championships, who knows what it takes, bring that factor into this lineup. I think that's, coming down from 0-5, you need a whole lot of motivation for you to kind of pick yourself up from the grave and position yourselves to the playoffs. And I think we have to credit Arwin Santos for making that happen.
Well, Juan, we'll take a quick break. Stay with us. With us today, basketball analyst Juan Banal. Juan, let's go to the NLEX Road Warriors. They have a new import that they will field in the playoffs, Cameron Clark. Coming in to replace KJ McDaniels. Unfortunately for NLEX, McDaniels had to go back home to the U.S. because of a personal matter. But tell us more about Cameron Clark. What can we expect from him? And do you see him fitting right away in that NLEX system para palitan tong si KJ McDaniels?
He's a 30-year-old import. He was undrafted in 2014 in the NBA. And the way they describe him is more of a player who can post up, can play facing the basket, can knock down jumpers. He has that athletic ability and can take the ball strong to the hole. I think it's going to be a tall order, having to really fill in the shoes of how KJ McDaniels and what KJ McDaniels meant to the NLEX Road Warriors. I think him being able to travel a lot, he's so used to jumping from one team to another. He played in Europe, West Asia, played in Turkey, Italy, and France, and Germany. So he's so used to that. But although his numbers weren't as impressive, he averaged 13 points, 5.8 rebounds, 0.9 steals in 13 games. But I think it's more of the grit factor that he can bring and to stabilize at least NLEX. You have to understand, NLEX did lose a guy like KJ McDaniels and then also Jericho Cruz. So there's a lot of balancing and stability requirement for NLEX to even secure. We've seen NLEX already be in this position in the playoffs before, only to lose and eventually bow out from the semifinals race. So a lot of maturity will be needed from this guy, and I think he can bring that. It's all a matter of also taking into consideration the jet lag and all that, how fast he can turn things around and be in complete shape and form for the Road Warriors.
3 teams already out na, eliminated from playoff contention. Simulan natin with Rain or Shine, Juan. Quickly, what happened to them this conference? Promising yung performances nila in recent conferences. And ano ba mga kailangan i-adjust ng ROS moving forward?
They had a lot of close calls, close games. But I think at this point, if you notice, every single team, this conference, with all the breaks, kind of had players that would really shine and step up and carry the team on their shoulders. And for rain or shine, I know that's their system. I know it's equal sharing of the ball. But at some point, you need somebody to completely step up and somebody that you can give the ball when you're down by 20 points and he can make things happen. And that should come from a local player. I think we saw some brilliance of that with Mike Nieto, who made an immediate impact in this squad. But you know, when you have so much uncertainties happening in a conference, you have to have a certain player. You know, somebody that when you automatically give the ball, you kind of know what the outcome would be. And rain or shine would have to develop that kind of player within their lineup.
How about Terra Firma? Kasi maganda din yung pinakita nila nung Philippine Cup.
There were a lot of bright spots for Terra Firma in this conference. They were blowing out teams, but only to end up losing it in the long run. They're not being able to sustain it. They had a lot of comebacks also. Very young team, but I think they're on the right track. You would say that it would be good and safe to say that it's good to build the team around Joshua Monzon and Wami Chongson and kind of surround them with the talent that you need. But a lot of maturing. Obviously, Antonio Hester was a huge factor. But in the next coming conferences, the locals will have to start embracing what role they're playing and then embracing the franchise players for this squad as well.
Finally, Juan, Blackwater on the verge of a 30-game losing skid. Their final game, kalaban nila Magnolia, top seed ngayon. So saying it's a tall order may just be an understatement. But taking a look at Blackwater, ano ba yung kailangan pa nilang gawin? Preparation for future conferences. Kasi malapit na mag-30 straight losses itong Blackwater.
Yeah, we're not one to judge and say, oh, this might be the perfect, formula for Blackwater to finally get that first win because Magnolia's already secured in the playoffs in the twice to beat. They wouldn't risk any players getting injured. I'm not saying they're gonna downplay their style of game, but obviously they're not. It's not as as intense that you would expect for a team that's trying to vie for a playoff spot. So they will try to play it safe. That might be the best window for Blackwater. But it's just, a lot of individual talents for Blackwater. Ray Suerte was a good revelation for Blackwater. But to come together, it's just that they haven't found the pieces that would perfectly fit. They have individual talents, but there's no I in team. But they haven't really found that combination. And maybe, hopefully, this one, they just need a taste. They just need that one win, and maybe that can, start and get the ball rolling for them.
Well, Juan, thank you again for joining us and for breaking down. Thank you for doing your research and for studying today. A ang grade mo. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Just had Basketball Analyst Juan Banal.